What's up, everybody? Welcome to Solana Weekly. This is your host, Thomas, and I want to thank you for joining in. Let's take a dive into the latest trends, use cases, and people behind the incredible growth of the Solana ecosystem. None of this is financial advice, but I'm hoping that all of this is alpha. Now let's get to the show. We've got Davide on from Neon Protocol here to tell us all about the latest on EVM on Solana. How are you doing today, Davide?
Hello Thomas, all good here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I am excited to hear about what you guys have been up to lately. Daria did come on a couple months ago, but I know that you guys are constantly building. I see you guys have new launches here, new launches there. So let's hear the latest from Neon.
Yeah, thank you for the question. On the Neon side, we just came up with the latest mainnet release, which is a pretty substantial update on our side, and this is the game changer also regarding Ethereum developers. Mainly, we started a process some months ago with a repositioning activity where we positioned Neon as a first Solana network extension to avoid any confusion, because Neon previously was considered a L2, a bridge or something in the middle, and we wanted to clarify the position of Neon. And first of all, we wanted to be closer to Solana, and that's why we put the network extension definition. So at the time of the Darius interview, maybe this was not fully defined yet. This is new, perfect. So this has been fully redone in terms of positioning, but this is also coming with technical updates and technical features. For example, with this latest mainnet release, we have just released an SDK for developers together with upgrades at EVM level and proxy level, and this introduces the Solana audience to Ethereum developers. So the big news here is that we are going Solana-native. What does it mean is that we allow Solana users to use their preferred Solana wallet, Phantom, Backpack, Software, whatever, to access also EVM applications on Neon and indirectly on Solana.
Yeah, which is awesome. So before, as a user, you weren't actually using it on from a Solana wallet. Like, that's not how you would access the Neon protocol before. Is that correct?
Correct. Before this upgrade, Neon somehow it was correct to be perceived as a L2 in the sense that the user experience was similar to other L2s in the sense that you need to connect to the Neon RPC, you need to use MetaMask, Webby, you need to bridge the assets from any chain to the Neon EVM one, and then you have to pay also the gas fee using Neon, which is a potential blocker. It's creating just friction for users, and all of these steps have been removed now because the user experience is completely different in the sense that now users can just use again the Solana wallet, so they don't even have to install a new one, and at the same time they don't even have to bridge assets, or they can directly pay the gas fees using Sol. So this looks the best user experience, because you don't notice what is the difference between an EVM application on Neon and an actual Solana application.
Wow, that's huge. So essentially now on Solana, you have the ability to use, is it any EVM protocol, or is it just a lot of them?
That's a very good question. This is a decision on the EVM protocol side, in the sense that we enable the technical feature, but then it's up to them to implement that feature into their protocol. So in particular, using the SDK, they have to implement the SDK into their front end. So the main changes are at front end level, and this is not an automatic process, but this is their way to enter Solana. So instead of considering to rebuild everything in Rust, the straightforward solution, the fast track to Solana, is using Neon SDK to just change their interface to enable the Solana signature.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. And to people that might be questioning, like, why would I want to do that? There are a lot of protocols on Ethereum that DeFi protocols in particular that have insane amounts of liquidity. A ton of liquidity is on Ethereum, and you might want to access protocols that have been around and kind of hard tested, battle tested for 5-6 years rather than a couple months or a couple of years on Solana. So there is a ton of benefits to the Solana community based on this, right?
Correct. I would say that the main benefit here is not only to bring OG names into also the Solana space, which is beneficial for everyone, because at the end, when you have more possibilities, this results in faster and better innovation overall. But this will allow existing primitives that already are battle tested to be deployed on Solana via Neon, and this means that they are coming with all of the past track record that they already have. So I want to specify that with this Solana-native feature, the Solana user will not be able to use directly the application on Ethereum. The application should still be deployed on Neon, but still they are coming with a bag full of experience in terms of knowledge team, so who is behind that protocol, and the full story of that protocol. So when those protocols are deployed on Neon, on Solana via Neon, most of the work is already done in terms of brand awareness and reputation, and it's just, if you are interested in that specific primitive, this is just an easier step also from the user perspective.
Wow. That's super interesting. And now, so you guys are actually doing a network extension on Solana. So these are fairly new to Solana, right? There's maybe a couple out there, or you guys are one of the first ones to actually do this. Is that right?
Correct, you're right. Neon actually launched in July 2023, so it's more than 1 year and a half ago. And from the tech perspective, the network has not changed. What has changed is our repositioning, because we had different phases, starting from a sort of isolated, presented as an isolated network to become a sort of L2 on Solana, and now we are positioned as network extension. And we believe that there was an interesting debate some time ago about fragmentation versus unification, and it's that debate that created the need also on our side to move in this direction, because when everything is fragmented, and this is still a topic that is widely discussed in the Ethereum space, the fragmentation is not mutually beneficial for all of the involved parties. You might have a situation where the user base is more or less the same, and you are just moving from one layer to another layer. Well, what we wanted to create is to unify instead of fragment. So we don't want to see Neon users that are not Solana users and vice versa. But if we have a unique user base, this is net positive, because we are just tapping into the Solana one and allowing more users to be added into the Neon and indirectly into the Solana ecosystem by creating our own, let's say, features and ecosystem.
Yeah, and when you speak about fragmentation, I mean that's almost like the core of a lot of what's going on in the Ethereum world, right? In ETH, you're not necessarily transacting on ETH, the main layer. There's a bunch of different L2s where applications are launched on there. They might not necessarily be launched on all the L2s. It might be on Arbitrum and on mainnet ETH, right? So it makes it really tough, I think, on developers. It makes it tough on users. I know that any time that I have to do a lot of that, I just give up sometimes and go back to Solana, because it's all together in one, right? Like a lot of it's unified. It's the modular versus monolithic kind of original was like that was like the core theory behind it. But you guys are almost like in the middle of those two, right?
Correct. The modular versus monolithic debate is another debate that is pretty relevant in this situation. Our position is in the middle. Is correct because we are based on the modular narrative, which is Solana, but at the same time, this extension is another way to discuss the modularism and the modularity space, in the sense that we are just extending, even from the technical perspective, the execution environment from SVM to EVM. So this definition of network extension is not only a marketing positioning, but it's also a technical positioning, because when discussing what is Neon from the infra perspective, the consensus is Solana, the settlement is Solana, even execution is Solana itself, because we have the Neon proxy that is executing a transaction in the Solana blockchain, but then we are still extending this environment, the execution one, in order to enable this EVM compatibility.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Man. Yeah. So what? So let's say a user today wants to check it out. What are they going to do to get started? Is this, they can open up their Phantom app and go to the Neon site in there, or how can our users get on there right now and check it out?
It's a very good question, and this feature has been released 1 or 2 weeks ago, more or less. So at the moment, the focus is developer side. Developers should integrate the SDK first. This is the first message. The second step is for users to use those applications using their own wallet.
Yeah. So then, are you going around to these developers that are building on Ethereum saying, hey, we have this great solution where you can bring Solana users over to you? Is that what kind of that stage is? Like, you want the developers to bring it onto your protocol and then everybody can use it from Solana?
Correct. Our perspective is that the future somehow is still multi-chain, in the sense that there are applications that are built that at the beginning there was some sort of maximalism between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and other environments. Today, the industry is more mature and even more structured, in the sense that it's more driven by business opportunity rather than technical, core technical faith. I mean, technical basis is still required, some fundamentals at technical level, but many developers and in general projects, so projects are composed by developers as well as business people, they also see at the market opportunity as one of the main drivers. And in this case, I think Solana is one of the best examples where there is a clear business opportunity to come there, because it's at all-time high in terms of all of the metrics, volumes, users, and transactions. So this is demonstrating real adoption, despite we are not more in 2020, 2021 phase at the beginning of the DeFi bull run, when that market was mainly pushed by incentives and let's say a lot of farming activities. Here we see still there are other trends. I mean, we have AI, we have meme coins that are still pushing let's say different narratives, but at the same time there are some primitives that already demonstrated the product market fit and real traction despite the incentives that are provided. So when there are no more incentives but users are still there, this is a great example of stickiness of users.
Yeah.
And today, those developers, EVM developers, see Solana as an opportunity, but they also see just the barriers to entry, because it's a completely different environment. It's not moving from an EVM L1 to an EVM L2, where there are minimal changes. In this case, the work to be done is pretty substantial and pretty different if you go with the Rust way, so with the Solana native, in the sense that you build everything in Rust. That's why Neon comes in place, anticipating that need and providing this shortcut to those developers that will see the Solana environment more as an EVM environment, or something that they are already familiar with, rather than a completely new environment where they have to learn everything from the tools to the, let's say, auditing part to the, let's say, any technical aspect about Solana.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? So Solana has the most users of any blockchain right now. The metrics, like you said, they're insane, and we have seen some companies or some businesses move from Ethereum to Solana, but it is a major shift, right? Like you almost have to like put your what you do on the side and focus for months, years to make sure that you properly migrate everything over, right? So to fully relaunch on Solana is a massive, it's a huge thing to do. But essentially where you guys come in is you're like, hey, you don't have to, hire a massive firm to do this. You don't have to hire a bunch of Rust developers to make this happen. We offer an environment, that offers EVM that will be a lot more friendly to your developers, and you can also reach the Solana user base. Does that sound right?
It's correct, yes.
Yeah.
When you consider developing in Rust in order to be onboarded in Solana, well, at the time you have two different code bases, so you have a lot of work before, but even after. Before it's what you said, so you need to hire Rust developers, you need to build the infrastructure from scratch, from zero, and this is already one component of higher cost. But then you move to audit, and when we talk about auditing firms, the number of firms expert in Rust is lower than the ones expert in Solidity. There are much more auditing Solidity firms rather than the Rust ones, and this means a longer time frame to be audited, or again higher cost. All of this results in just a longer time to market, and potentially you might miss the opportunity because we know crypto is super fast, Web3 is even faster, DeFi is even faster. And if your pipeline is 6 months, 9 months or 12 months longer, then in 12 months you don't have anymore the first mover advantage, someone else might have taken your spot, and your advantage is gone. And then what's happened after, in the sense that when you have two different code bases, you cannot even launch the same feature on two, or at least the maintenance is still a pretty heavy workload, because you have to develop for Rust and develop for Solidity, or in general the EVM environment. And this is not happening when we talk about EVM multi-chain deployments. Usually the same feature is available across all the networks at the same time. And we know that developers try to have, let's say, the same stack, the same code base across different environments, just because it's easier for them. They cannot modify and fix every single code base because it's literally a mess.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's great. Now, have there been any cases of people going from Solana onto your network extension at all, like the other way?
From Solana.
Yeah.
For Solana,
I don't know why they do that, but that was the thought that came to my head.
This is indirectly one of the questions that we receive the most. Why you are different from Eclipse? Why we are doing exactly the opposite of Eclipse, in the sense that the goal of Eclipse is to onboard EVM developers into the Ethereum space. In our case, we are targeting first Ethereum developers and just Solana users. So a Solana developer today cannot use, has no benefits in using Neon, because they will see from their SVM original environment, they will see a completely different one, which is the EVM one, which is totally a disaster for them to move from SVM to EVM, and that's why Eclipse is in place. What we are doing is the opposite. So for the EVM ones that want to tap into Solana, they will still see the same familiar tools that they are aware of.
Oh, that's cool. So it's almost like you're not like bridging funds between Ethereum to Solana, but it's just almost like you're bridging you're like a bridge
for
protocols and people. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
correct, and this is pretty connected with another flow that we saw recently. The migration of flows between EVM environment to Solana, and this happened quickly in one day. In a few days, we saw a massive amount of funds moving from EVM to Solana. For people and for projects, it's not as quickly as for money, in the sense that you cannot click on a bridge and magically you are on the other network. You need to learn that one, the language, let's say the whole infrastructure, and this is what we are trying to bridge, indirectly bridging people and projects, but not money.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I mean, as you said, we are a lot more multi-chain now. Like there still are some maxis, but it's like, as we see, better technology come out, there is going to be more chains, and to be able to connect them and not be as fragmented as a developer is what people are going to want, right? Like you're going to want to have your DeFi protocol on, the best L1s, the best, or, wherever the users are. And if that's, you see a bunch of liquidity going on to, Bitcoin DeFi protocols or something like that, you're going to want access to that, right? Like that's something where you kind of have to chase the users, and you guys are basically the bridge to do that, right?
If you let me do an analogy, it's like driving cars in UK or in Europe, in the sense that you are still driving a car, but if you are driving on the right or on the left, it's pretty different, and you might have a car crash. So allowing, let's say, European cars to be driven also in UK, this is indirectly what we are allowing to do. So the European one, as like the EVM developers, they can continue driving their own cars also in UK, which has a different mechanism for driving. Let's say this way.
So I'm in America, and when I see the occasional car where they're driving on the other side, they're driving on the right side of the car, but they have to still stay in our lanes. It's the funniest thing that you've ever seen. But it's a good analogy because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So one side note. So you brought up driving in Europe. So we did our honeymoon in Italy, and we rented a car, and I was getting ready, and I was like, oh, any tips for driving around? And he looks at me, he's like, you're American, right? He's like, don't stay in the same lane. It's like a dance, you've got to always be moving. Don't stay in the lane. And it made sense that it's like everybody there, it's like you don't stay in a lane. Everybody's constantly moving around in between the lanes, and things made a lot more sense after he said that. So I'd always tell my wife, like, I'm not driving right now. I'm actually dancing. Leave me alone.
Good job.
Yeah, sounds good. So you just released a network extension, and is that so? Anybody that was using your previous protocol, is that pretty easy to move them over to the network extension, or are those kind of like the first people to move over, or how's that looking?
Regarding this passage, before the, let's say, network extension, we had some applications, DEXs, lending markets, mainly this type of categories, DeFi categories, that were deployed on Neon, but they were with the, let's say, legacy model. So targeting EVM users, targeting still, let's say, new liquidity that should enter the Neon EVM ecosystem. Now we are working in this transition where even existing applications, not only the new one that we are talking with, can have this Solana wallet compatibility, but it's valid for both existing ones but also new ones.
Okay, cool. What would the dream protocol be to bring on to Neon right now?
There are some verticals that we are exploring. I would say that the most relevant ones are still DeFi first, and in that sector there are some primitives that we identified that are not available in Solana, so this will be a net new use case, even for the Solana environment, as well as some others. So it can be on the DEX side as well as the lending. But even when we talk about meme coins, I mean, we know Pump.Fun is the leader there.
Yeah.
But on the other side, we have Base, which is the second best chain for when we talk about meme coins, or in particular even AI, which is another case which is very relevant. Those sectors are dominated by just Solana and Base. And if we assume that Base is the leader in all of the EVMs, what we allow here is that those EVM applications on Base, again related to meme coins, related to AI, they can consider also Solana in a more native way using us, and not only the other EVM networks that are not at the same level as Solana and Base. So if you have them, probably conquer 80% of the, let's say, AI market. Just being on one, which is Base, is limiting you, developer, because you don't have the other 50% or 40% missing. You can unlock that even via Neon EVM.
Yeah. So because all the L2s are written in EVM, are you able to actually connect to any app on any of the L2s?
It's not a connection. Still, here we are talking about a deployment of that DApp into Neon to access Solana. So the Neon is not connected directly with L2s or L1, but it's more about the possibility for developers to access the Solana market using that code that they already used for those EVM L2s.
And with that, as long as they're in EVM, whatever L2 they're on, they have the potential to use Neon then?
They can be in any EVM, L1, L2, whatever is their initial network, but then they can also consider Solana and put this as a market opportunity.
Wow. So with something like Monad coming out, I feel like there's a couple big L1s that are coming out, and I think it's like Super EVM, Barachain, Mega ETH,
okay.
yeah, there's that, and Monad. So with those three coming out, I would imagine, first of all, I'm imagining they want Solana users, right? Like there's a lot of Solana users, they're going to want to offer them, offer something that they're going to want, right? So I would imagine that this would be a pretty easy way for them to get, or potentially to get users, is that right?
Correct, for sure they will try to have the first mover advantage in those specific networks where they are launching, probably together with the mainnet launcher. I guess they will be very fast in launching this, but still those ecosystems will start from zero, so they will have to acquire users by themselves. There are a lot of promises on those names, but at the same time, if those applications will look at multi-chain expansion, which other networks they can consider? Well, Solana probably is one of the top priorities, and again, Neon can be just the infrastructure that will enable this operation.
Sounds good, and because those are EVM, as long as they're willing to send the data through Neon, it will work with Solana essentially, right?
They have to deploy the code base, so take the code base, deploy on Neon, and then they are available on Solana. Yes.
Wow. That's really cool. So it's like you're helping the multi-chain future.
Yes, this is our vision. I mean, we are, of course, let's say, we are based on Solana, so we believe in the Solana future and scalability solutions, and in general the great execution at Solana Foundation, Anza, and all of the teams that we are working behind that. But we also believe that the number of Solidity developers today is still the majority there. I mean, Solana is doing a great work in an educational program to have more Rust developers, but still the Solidity ones are the majority of the developer market, and by enabling them to access this ecosystem, it's again a net benefit for both Solana, for us, but also for those Solidity developers, that they don't have to start from from zero to study.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So bringing people to Solana, like bringing users to to platforms that want them outside of Solana. That's pretty cool. That's a good goal, right?
Absolutely, it's an ambitious goal, but this is why Neon was built.
Yeah, I guess we probably I didn't really start with where Neon really came from, but you guys were the first to actually build EVM into Solana. Is that right?
Neon. The story of Neon is started more than 3 years ago. I would say almost 4. At the time of Solana having the first real interest from the market, and then the gap between again Rust and Solidity emerged at the time, with Ethereum still dominating. Then many things happened during this period, in the sense that there was the FTX crash, Alameda, and all of the bear market that directly and extensively involved the Solana, but still Neon continued building with the vision of enabling EVM application on top of Solana, because there was the concrete interest in using this technology, the Solana one, which was considered already a superior one when we talk about the monolithic vision. And this evolved into the actual mainnet launch. Before that, there was a raise, a $40 million raise across from different investors. And this helped to scale the team. The team is now pretty big. We are more than 60 people. And at the same time, this allowed us to build the infrastructure, which was released again 1 year and a half ago. And now we are moving in the product market fit direction. So it's not only about the technical features. It's technical features are the first component of our vision of what we are building, but then the core focus is product market fit, and that's why we also moved from being a sort of EVM, fast and cheap EVM network, which was the very old definition, to being closer to Solana. And again, we were seen as a L2, and then it ended up being a Solana network extension, because when we talk about the marketing part, marketing positioning, the technical positioning, then there is also the commercial positioning, which means that who are the real users, and in this case, developers that will use your platform, because today it's pretty easy to see TPS or other metrics are the most relevant ones. Well, Neon in terms of TPS is thousands of TPS, because it's 30% of the Solana ones, so it's very, very competitive when we talk about EVM in comparison with EVM environments. But this can be seen even as a vanity metric sometimes, because it's just a number, but who will really need that TPS, that metric, and are there other blockers where maybe you have the TPS but you don't have decentralization, you don't have transaction cost. We remember the Vitalik trilemma about these aspects. You cannot achieve everything to scale, but be decentralized and also be cheap. It's very unlikely to have everything. So what we are focusing now is not only the technical part, but also the commercial part, to tap into the real audience that is looking at our product, and not just those that, let's say, are short-term oriented developers.
Yeah. Well, and because you are a network extension, you guys have, almost like your own execution environment, right? You're not necessarily going to be bogged down if Solana does have a little bit of a slowdown. Is that correct?
In this case, unfortunately, no, in the sense that the execution environment being Solana and EVM, it means that the Neon proxies are the actors. Those are the sort of node operators. They are not actually node operators, so this is not the right definition, but still those are players that are executing transaction in the Solana environment. So it means that if Solana is suffering from congestion or is halted, this is directly impacting Neon. So the Neon performance is at least the Solana one. If Solana has this type of issues, Neon will suffer too. But then it's valid for the whole Solana environment. So the Solana user will not see difference between the Neon and Solana because they all have the same problem.
Yeah.
And about that, I briefly mentioned the congestion. Let me also introduce the fact that with the latest upgrade, we also implemented the AP 1559, which is the so-called Ethereum London fork, which is something that on the Ethereum side was done years ago. But why it was never implemented on the Neon side? Well, first of all, AP 1559 is the dual parameter fee system where you have the max fee and the priority fee. And a similar system also worked in Solana, in the sense that Solana introduced the base fee and the priority fee with a similar logic. But practically speaking, before the first congestion, it was end of Q1, beginning of Q2 2024, no protocols were using the priority fee. Everyone was just using the base fee, and even the Neon logic was adapted to mainly use the base fee and automatically detect how to put the priority fee. But then something changed drastically, in the sense that during that situation, during that congestion, most of the protocols started implementing the priority fee, and then there was a real war about priority fees and being always on top to be sure that the transactions were executed. And that changed completely also at Neon level, so we had to implement the AP 1559, which was again the Ethereum London fork, which now is mirroring what we have on Solana. So it's the same logic. We have the max fee and base fee, which is the same, and then the priority fee on the EVM side, on the Neon EVM, as well as it's the same that we have on Solana. So this is allowing the proxies to price the fees in the right way, to give the users more flexibility in the numbers that they want to put according to the priority that they want to have for their transactions.
Yeah, and I think that we saw the culminating effect of that after Trump launched his coin on Solana, and everything was fine, right? You know, the priority fees were a little bit higher, but then he launched the Melania coin, and that it didn't stall the network, but a lot of the priority fees were kind of out of whack, and a lot of the programs on Solana were set up to where they wouldn't pay priority fees above a certain level. And though everybody was paying so much for a transaction that in order to get a transaction through, you had to pay a priority fee above what a lot of programs were actually allowing you to pay, right? So effectively for a little while, you couldn't really land a transaction unless you had a really high priority fee. And a lot of different programs had a hard time. I mean, nobody was anticipating the amount of traffic that we saw, right? So that stress tested everybody, but that was culminating from those priority fees becoming so important, right?
Yes, but it's important to notice that the congestion that happened less than 1 month ago was order of magnitude higher than the ones that happened in Q1, Q2 2024. So it means that Solana already digested let's say the issues at that time, and in general there was a lot of effort to improve and be ready for the next time. And this time they put the bar at a higher level, so that level of congestion is no more an issue today, and this is the amazing result. The fact that what 6 months ago or 1 year ago was a problem, today is no more a problem, and the definition of problem is just at a higher level. And specifically in one day, if I remember well, the Solana network processed $30 billion in volume in one day, which is like 10% of the Nasdaq one. This is something that I read on Twitter, and the Solana vision is to be the on-chain Nasdaq, and I think that this what happened is just demonstrating that every day they are closer and closer to achieving that definition.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of use was unprecedented by any sort of blockchain ever before, and it held up, right? So it was big.
Absolutely insane, I would say.
Yeah, and also EIP 1559 was that was a couple years ago that Ethereum put it on, maybe a year ago or so, and that was what really created the burn during transactions, right?
At the Ethereum level, they added this to introduce let's say the deflationary model.
Yeah,
if you're referring to that one, yes.
Yeah, so that was the change that they made, and Solana has some part of that as well, right? So that's what you're talking about. The fees get burnt a little bit.
Honestly, more than burning fees, I'm referring just to the fact that you have this base fee, which is a sort of predictable cost to cover the base one for the transaction execution, and the rest, the priority, is a sort of flexible parameter where you just want to put higher priority fee when you want to have faster transaction processing or lower if it's not a priority for you. It's the logic behind that is slightly different and mainly user oriented, I would say.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I needed to clarify because I haven't been thinking about that in a while. I know it was huge when it first came out, right? It was like, this is priority fees that's going to solve a lot of the congestion issues, and it's going to be good for the overall network, going to be a little deflationary, right?
For Ethereum, yes, this was the idea. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Now, last time that we spoke, I think Daria said that you guys were going to be launching on a Bitcoin L2. Is that still the case, or is this a completely different angle that you guys ended up going?
Very good question, and you are probably referring to the so-called Neon stack, which is an interesting example of how Neon can potentially be a technology beyond Solana, in the sense that there are many SVM networks that are launched here and there, on top of Bitcoin, on top of Ethereum. Still, they have the same boundaries of Solana, in the sense that you need to be a Rust developer if you want to deploy there, or in general they are targeting existing Solana developers. So if those protocols, if those layers are suffering from this potential bottleneck because the number of Rust developers is not so big, and they want to tap into the Ethereum one, the Neon network can be even deployed on top of those layers to provide EVM compatibility in the same way that we are providing to Solana, but also if you are Bitcoin L2, Ethereum L2, they can have EVM compatibility using the Neon EVM infrastructure. Today, this is not a priority in the sense that we are 100% on Solana. This is our main focus, but this is still a very interesting opportunity from product perspective and business perspective, in the sense that we expect that those networks might have the interest, and this interest was already expressed at that time to have this EVM compatibility. At the moment, we decided to prioritize Solana, but we still have an eye on top of this possibility, because it's a way for Neon to just expand its infrastructure outside Solana itself.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about product market fit in crypto, because you never know what's going to happen or what the narrative is going to be, right? Like imagine telling yourself in the bear market of 2022 or 2023 that all the users would be on Solana, right? Like there was no users then during that bear market, right? So you wouldn't be building out a product for that. Like you wouldn't have thought of like, let's do this so that everybody can get exposure to the Solana users, right? Like that wouldn't be a thought, where now it's like that's what everybody wants. And to be able to shift for that is like, you guys have to be able to do that. So it's awesome to hear that you've done that, and I think that's going to prove incredibly useful, I think.
Yeah, agree.
Sounds good. So what else do you guys have coming up in Neon soon? It seems like you guys always have big releases coming out. It's fun to watch.
That's good to hear, and our main focus today is totally on the product market fit. So still to prove that there is this demand for EVM developers to come into Solana using our technology. And what we are working today is mainly to unlock as many technical features as possible. So what we have released now is this SDK, so Solana Signature SDK, let's call it in this way, V1, which is the initial version to prove the demos and let the developers to start integrating this. But this will be improved with a version 2 that we are working on, and this will simplify further the developer journey, because we are very focused on the developer journey. We want to simplify as much as possible the use of, let's say, new tools or different logics, and this version 2 will be an important part, especially regarding asset management, that will be fully on Solana, so the user will continue having everything at Solana level, but from the developer perspective it will be even easier to show that assets are on Solana. And this is in parallel with the composability, because applications don't only want to access the user base, they also want to access the Solana liquidity. And this is important because being an isolated environment, it means that if you have some dependencies. If you want to onboard a lending market, the lending market will need a DEX, a solid DEX, where it will be possible to liquidate the position, because the lending market does not need to create a bad debt otherwise. This should be avoided. Well, with Neon and with the composability, the V1 that is already live, it's already possible to access the Solana liquidity. So lending market on Neon, which is again an EVM application, liquidating on Solana. So using the Solana that is already there, we don't have to incentivize that liquidity because it already exists. And today this composability is a simple version of composability, which allows interactions with Orca, with Radium, but there is much more than that, because with composability V2, which is another big milestone in our development roadmap, the composability V2 will allow interactive transactions. Interactive transactions are referred to more complex transactions, and specifically when we talk about atomic liquidations across multiple venues, so something that lending market are definitely interested on, or flash loans, or other technical aspects that will have these complex logics. Well, this will be unlocked with composability V2, and in the short term, this is definitely the direction to have to give to developers more tools to explore with. And at the end, the expectation is that Neon cannot succeed by just allowing forks to be deployed or multi-chain deployment. Neon will succeed if it will be able to onboard net new primitives that do not exist but are now possible because you have the tools of the EVM but in the Solana space. So this is the direction for the mid and long-term future.
Yeah, and one thing to think about when there used to be a lot more competition between Solana and ETH, but now I feel like it's not as bad anymore, right? I feel like they work together on a lot of different fronts, and I think that Solana can benefit from a lot of the protocols that have been built out on EVM protocols, because a lot of theory and a lot of years, traditionally they're a little bit slower to release a lot of some of the protocols, but that's because they're building out more. They're new, but they're definitely innovative, and there's a lot of thought, and I think that we can benefit from a lot of those protocols. So I look forward to seeing what comes over, and I think that we could all learn from it, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
I totally agree with that, yeah.
One thing that I saw, did I read this right? Does it take an hour to port over maybe some from ETH into Neon? Is that right?
Did you read? Where did you read it?
I don't know. I thought I saw that somewhere. I had a note to ask about that, but I don't want to. Maybe that was false news.
No, I mean it's more about the developer experience again, something that we are very focused on. So I cannot ensure that it's 1 hour. It depends on the complexity also of the protocol. But when we talk about basic protocols, it's very simple and similar to other EVM deployment. So for developers that are already familiar with this multi-chain deployment, it's something that they can easily handle.
Yeah, sounds good. As opposed to months of development to actually deploy on Solana. That's
exactly. I mean, that's the difference. So we want to be faster and easier than the multi-months phase that developers will have to face when dealing with the last one.
Yeah, you're dealing more in the time frame that most people in crypto deal with, right? Days, not months. They don't have months, right?
Exactly.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else that the users need to hear about? Anything else the listeners need to know about Neon?
No, I think that this was a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Thomas, for inviting me and hosting Neon. It was great chatting with you, and thank you again.
Yeah, it was great to chat with you as well. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing what you guys bring over. Look forward to using it, and wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Looking forward.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Solana Weekly. Once again, this is Thomas Bahamas, and I have one final ask for you guys. If you could, please subscribe on whatever player you're listening to. You could leave a review. That would be amazing. If you want to shield me your bags. Work for them. But yeah, really appreciate it. And as always, this is not financial advice, but I want you guys to accelerate, move forward, and let's get this bag. I'll catch you guys next week.